Hey there YouTube lovers, my name is BB8 and today we are going to review Overwatch 2. I am fully aware this game has had a rocky launch, but it's not based on the rocky launch the game has had. But this is mainly based on how fun this game is compared to the original, and if each version of the game holds up to one another. And without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? So for the gameplay, Overwatch 2 doesn't really feel different as of gameplay, but the only thing I do feel is a bit different is the 5v5 strategy instead of 6v6. And I know with Overwatch 2 becoming free to play that the game would end up adding microtransactions into the mix. But I'm fine with Overwatch 2 becoming free to play because it allows me to switch platforms without having to buy the game twice. So, yeah, back to the whole gameplay part. I do think the gameplay this time around is actually okay. It doesn't really feel the same because they did cut the amount of people you have in your team by 1, but I do love how vibrant and colourful Overwatch 2 is compared to the original. And I do like the fact that push mode is like Tug of War meets Big Hero 6, one of my favourite Disney films of all time, by the way, but I do think they managed to get creative with the new push mode in the game. And that was one mode I was looking forward to trying out, but I haven't really got good at push mode yet. But the push mode will take a bit of time to getting used to. And I do think the push mode does fit well with the maps of Toronto and Rome. And the experience point system this time around is a bit different as well, because they did remove like the standard leveling system from Overwatch 1, but instead replaced it with a new tier system, which does reset every season, and each level you level up does tie in with the battle pass. And for the changes that have been made to the heroes, like, I'm fine with some of their move sets and designs being tweaked. Like, some of their designs I'm fine with, like Lucio's design I'm satisfied with, because they did manage to add a bit of neon flair to his dreadlocks. D.Va's design I'm really satisfied with, but the only design I don't think really makes sense to that character is probably Doomfist, because I don't think having like a collar of fur around him really fits the character at all. But it is a good job that they kept the Overwatch 1 designs as skins within Overwatch 2. But the only difference here is that the characters have had their movesets changed as well. Like, for example, Bastion. Even though I did have a play around with Bastion, unfortunately, the ranking video I made for Overwatch 2 recently, Bastion has went down a bit. Only because of how much his moveset has changed. Because I am sort of happy that they did nerf Bastion a bit to make him a bit less OP, even though I do think the repair move in Bastion when an opponent is camping is a bit too OP. And the turret part, like making that so you can move Bastion while you're in that form, I do like that touch. It's just Bastion doesn't live up to his character from Overwatch 1, in my opinion. For the shop and the battle pass, even though the lineup in the shop isn't really that good yet, I do love the athleisure skin for Kiriko, but I do like the design of her jacket from the Twitch drop event a bit better, which means I will be grinding Twitch over the weekend so I can get that skin. And of course, I don't really think Junker Queen skins are really that good, especially for legendaries, because I did hear a lot of people say that Junker Queen skins are not really that good, but I do actually agree with them. And for the monetization system they did put in this game, I don't really blame the Overwatch team for putting microtransactions in here, because after all, the game is free to play, and they did need some way to monetize the game. So I don't really blame the Overwatch team for putting a new currency called Overwatch coins in there and a new battle pass system. Even though I do think the battle pass from this season is actually okay, the few skins that did come to my attention had to be the D.VA skin, the EDM D.VA skin. Like, I have wanted a DJ D.VA for quite a while after watching the Shooting Star short, and with Lucio being a character themed around music, an Easter egg in the Shooting Star short did suggest that D.VA was a fan of Lucio, and I do think the EDM skin does fit quite well. And I do hope that they do bring a recolor to the EDM skin in the future, similar to how we have had recolors for various skins. I do hope that the EDM skin from the Battle Pass gets a Lucio themed recolor in the future. And the one skin that really caught my attention with Overwatch 2's Battle Pass had to be Cyber Demon Genji. I do really love this skin. Although we're only going to get one mythic skin per season, it is brilliant how the Overwatch team are taking mythic skins the correct way. And I do like how much detail has gone into the mythic skins, and that you can make the skin uniquely yours. And I am really hoping that other heroes other than Genji do end up getting the mythic skin treatment in the future. And finally, the hero gallery. I do think the hero gallery has changed since Overwatch 1, having each item from the hero gallery, needing Overwatch coins to actually obtain them, you can use legacy credits to actually get the items you like. But the only problem with the legacy credits is if you didn't play Overwatch 1, you can't get access to them. And the whole cross progression system brings all your credits over from the original Overwatch to Overwatch 2. And if you run out, you probably might have to pay for your cosmetics with real money. Like, the whole legacy credits problem isn't really a big deal to me, because I almost have everything for D.Va. But I do think the legacy credits was a neat feature though. But before we go to the summary, I thought I would share the advantages and disadvantages of Overwatch 2 being free to play. The advantages are, you don't need a subscription to play the game anymore. Like, you don't have to be subscribed to Xbox Live, PlayStation Plus, or Nintendo Switch Online to play the game. You can just play the game with no subscription at all. And the disadvantage might have to be microtransactions. But I'm okay with the whole monetization system they've gone with here. For the summary, I'm going to give the graphics a 9 out of 10. The graphics in this game are not really terrible at all. They look amazing. And the graphics do stand out better than Overwatch 1's graphics, but it does depend on which platform you are playing on. The characters, I am going to give an 8.5 out of 10, because I do like what they have done with the characters this time around by giving them fresh new looks and maybe tweaking their movesets a bit to make sure they don't become overpowered, like they did tweak Bastion not to have an unlimited turret form. Even though I do know someone who wasn't happy with that change, I do think they did manage to have good changes to the heroes. Even though some of their redesigns didn't make sense, I am satisfied with my favourite hero's new design being D.Va. And for content, I'm going to give a 7 out of 10. Unfortunately, although there's not that much content within the game yet, I do see the amount of content within the game growing within the next 2 years. Because with the new maps such as Toronto, Rome, Rio de Janeiro, and New York, my favourite maps in the game so far have to be Rio de Janeiro and New York, because I do like the unique touch they've added to the payloads. And it is nice to finally see New York in Overwatch. Even though my friendly neighborhood Spider-Man's not in there, New York is still immersive within Overwatch 2. The Battle Pass, I'm going to give a 6 out of 10. The Battle Pass is actually alright, but the only problems I really have with the Battle Pass is they do put a whole bunch of items that don't really interest me in here. But the items that did interest me are the EDM D.Va skin, the Cyber Demon Genji skin, and that one skin for Kuriko that does remind me a lot of Suki and Suki 2.0 from Fortnite. But I am hoping that with the whole new mythic skin system in the game, that they do give other heroes a chance to get their own mythic skin within the game. And I am curious to see what a mythic D.Va skin will look like. The online, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. The online isn't really terrible. Well, it was on launch, but I might rewatch this review video like a month after its upload, and I bet the queuing systems and the whole account merging won't be as big as a problem as it was within the first few days of launch. But I do think the online is smooth on Series X and PS5. And unfortunately, it does have rendering delay on Nintendo Switch. And a new feature I'm bringing into my reviews called versions. But unfortunately, only free-to-play games will get this feature. So, for the PlayStation 5 version, I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. The PS5 version of Overwatch 2, you could easily tell is the more immersive experience with the new adaptive trigger feature added to the game, which does really make the trigger feel accurate to each hero's weapon. And for example, the trigger does rumble when I use D.Va's guns on her mech, and it does, you can actually feel what each hero's weapon is actually like, which I do think makes the PlayStation 5 version of the game stand out a bit more. I'm not judging you guys on which version of the game to get, but it's just my opinion on each version of the game. For the Xbox Series X version, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Even though there isn't really a noticeable difference between the Series X and PS5 versions of Overwatch 2, but the only difference I have pointed out between the two is that the shading of the characters may be a bit different, and the player icon on the bottom left being too bright on PlayStation 5. And here is a side-by-side comparison image of the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 versions of the games, which I did capture these from my own console. And as you can see here, on the left, D.Va's fringe underneath her hair and all that actually does have shading. But unfortunately, on the PlayStation 5 version of the game, there isn't really shading within the fringe. And you can tell there that on the PlayStation 5 version that the player icons are a bit too bright, but on the Xbox Series X, on the left, isn't really as bright as it is on the PlayStation 5. And they just about managed to get the whole brightness deal right on Xbox. And since I do have HDR turned on within both of them, unfortunately, I do think they do need a bit of reworking with the shading on D.Va's fringe. For the Nintendo Switch version, I give a 6 out of 10. It doesn't run terribly, but I can easily tell that the Switch version does need a bit of reworking in order to stand out with the PS5 and Series X and S. The rendering of each character's intro when you select your hero feels a bit slow, but I do think they could make the character rendering a bit faster, and the frame rate may need a bit of a boost from 30 FPS to 60 FPS. Because we do know that the Switch can handle 60 FPS because Splatoon 3 runs 60 FPS docked. And I don't recommend that you main the Nintendo Switch version of the game. The only time I recommend using the Nintendo Switch version is if you are in an environment with no internet connection or without a TV. But overall, I do think the Nintendo Switch version needs its own patch to fix the texturing, the rendering, and the frame rate when docked. The length, I don't know why I put this feature in here, because the PvE mode is not existent until about Overwatch 2 Season 3, but the length is mainly based on how long a match is. And for the length, I'm giving it an average 5 to 15 minutes. At the end of the day, this does depend on how quick your team is. The difficulty, I'm going to give it a hard, because some characters may be a bit difficult to master, but once you've got the hang of it, you should be able to master the characters. And for the audience, I'm going to give it a 12 to 16. I don't know why they raised the rating in the UK from PEGI 12 to PEGI 16, because there isn't really that much changed from the original Overwatch. So I do think they should have kept it between like 12 to 16. And I do think that this is a fine shooting game to be your teen's first proper shooting game. And for the perk, I know this is a free-to-play game, but if this was an option to buy it physically, I would give it the collector perk. Overall, I give Overwatch 2 an 8.6 out of 10. Although Overwatch 2 did not beat the original game, which Overwatch 1 I originally gave a 10 out of 10. But for me reviewing this game, I still think Overwatch 2 is a fun first-person shooting game to play. It is a bummer I can't play Overwatch 1 anymore due to the servers shutting down prior to Overwatch 2's launch, but this game does have all 32 heroes with the addition of Sojourn, Junker Queen, and Kiriko. New returning maps as well, but the only thing that doesn't really feel the same is assault mode being cut and loot boxes being removed. Like, I don't mind the monetization system they went with this time around, but Overwatch 2 doesn't really feel the same without loot boxes, which is an okay change, because without loot boxes in the game, they could actually make the game more accessible in other regions, because the original Overwatch, from what I've heard, was actually banned in Belgium for actually having loot boxes within the game. The same situation with Mario Kart Tour with the pipes. And I probably bet the game will pick up steam when the PvE mode launches in Overwatch 2 Season 3. And I can't wait to see what the future does hold for the game, as of new heroes and new maps. And I am looking forward to giving that new tank hero coming in Season 2 a whirl. So guys, what did you think of my Overwatch 2 review? Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and turn your notification bell on so you don't miss another review video like this one. I will review the PvE mode of Overwatch 2 separately when that drops in Season 3. And I will see you all in a future review video. BB8 out.